Is 2025 going to be Iran's nuclear year? Is this region going to deteriorate even further? We're going to discuss all of this today on TBN Israel, the podcast. Mati, it's good to be here with you again.
It's good to be with you, Yair. All this and more on today's podcast.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Iranian bomb, whether it's coming or not.
Do they have it already?
Yeah. What is the response going to be? And how else is this affecting the destabilizing forces in this region? But before we start, let's address the weirdly dressed man in the room.
Nuclear Houthi. The nuclear Houthi.
Came all the way from Iran.
Anyway, so this has been a hot topic for over 10 years at this point.
Yeah.
I want to say it's almost 15 years at this point. Iran has been a nuclear threshold, or a country aspiring to a nuclear bomb, for the majority of our lifetime, at this point, I'd say our adult lifetime.
Yeah, for sure. They've been investing all their money and the people's money in developing this nuclear bomb, and at the same time developing a rocket that can carry the nuclear payload and deliver it against Israel or other places in the world.
And they've spent enormous amounts of money for many, many years on acquiring all the bits and pieces that make them capable of reaching a point where they can combine all these different elements.
Yes.
And the elements are, and because we're going to break this down in depth in a bit, are first of all having the raw material, which is enriched or military grade enriched uranium.
Yes.
Two, having the warhead itself, as in the explosion mechanism to start the chain reaction needed to turn enriched uranium into a nuclear bomb. And the third part is the payload able or capable delivery mechanism. So an ICBM or just a large-scale missile that's able to carry to a direct destination a bomb and detonate it exactly at the right point.
Yeah, and let me add another element to this is the fact that in order to become a nuclear country with the ability to threaten the world, you need to have more than one bomb. You need to have multiple nuclear bombs. So this is what they need in order to achieve their goals, and that's where they're aiming for in 2025 as well, because they lost basically most of their ring of fire and their axis of evil in this region, because except for the Houthis that are still there launching rockets. But Hezbollah is collapsing, the Assad regime is collapsing. So what they have to invest in order to still be relevant is the nuclear bomb. And that's what I
think Iran's in a very weird position right now that they haven't been in decades at this point, where a lot of what they've been working for and spending money on is off the table, to your point. They've lost a lot of their resources in a very considerable and incredibly expensive manner, too.
Super expensive.
Heavily invested in Hezbollah, lost those assets. Hamas, same. Even IRGC assets that they had in this region, within Syria, within other parts of the Middle East, a lot of them are eliminated, dead, or blown up into pieces. The footage that came out last week of Shaldag, the Air Force Special Forces within Syria, blowing up, and again, I want people to understand this, blowing up an IRGC facility inside Syria. So this is
from the ground,
on the ground.
Not with an airstrike.
Yeah. So when you're looking at
taking the scientists with them
and taking the scientists
and bringing them for an extended visit in Israel, or an
there's not much tourism now, so you need to bring them forcefully.
It's called surprise tourism. It's a new kind of tourism. Anyway, so they've lost a lot on that side of things. And then the nuclear bomb, or the push for the nuclear bomb, is this very weird scenario. Because, and we'll break this down in a second, they're not wrong in stating or internally discussing and thinking that having a nuclear capability is something worth working towards. And the reason is not because they want to necessarily use the bomb, is because a nuclear bomb is a game changer when it comes to your position in the international community. Every country that has one has the ability to veto, essentially, almost every other country's decision, unless they too
also have a nuclear
bomb. Or allegedly have, as Israel does, nuclear capabilities.
Yeah, unofficially.
Exactly. And so that's where it's really, really tricky. They've invested, and we need to sort of open up the understanding here. They've invested decades and probably tens of billions of dollars at this point in this project. They've taken the best and the brightest of their country, and they've taught them science professions that relate to everything around nuclear and everything around rocket delivery.
Yeah.
All of that. So they've pushed the best and their brightest. They've invested the money, the time. They've sent spies and and fronts and third-party countries and companies and shell companies around the world to try to acquire, steal, copy the abilities to do this.
Yeah.
And so far, they've done so unsuccessfully. And this is sort of where we are today.
Unsuccessfully, why? Because there were interventions along the way.
Yeah.
Israel, the
Many.
United States, and other countries, sabotaged their efforts to create this bomb, either by, terminating the scientists, stealing materials, like what Israel did not long ago, and disrupting purchasing of parts from North Korea and other places into Iran.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we could talk about.
We can talk a lot. Yeah, definitely.
If you think, and I'll say this differently as a headline, if you think the pager operation was impressive,
yes.
What Israel and its allies did when it comes to the Iranian nuclear program, it dwarfs all of that.
One day it will be published.
Some of it has been published.
Definitely.
I mean, there are Tom Clancy films and Jason Bourne films and Mission Impossible films that the scriptwriters of those films would look at the news report of what Israel, the U.S.
This is science fiction. Nobody will believe it. It's too much.
No one would ever believe it.
It's like the Fast and the Furious. It's not real.
I'll give anecdotally a couple stories. We had Iranian and then Syrian scientists who had, in a very complicated sting operations, had people steal equipment and information from their laptops as they were visiting other countries without them knowing that it happened. There were people that were abducted and no one knew that they were abducted. Yeah. There was software that was installed onto some of the centrifuge equipment within Iran that was installed, the Stuxnet worm virus, that was installed by, allegedly, an Israeli and American operation. I think several other countries were possibly part of it.
That's pretty good. That's super cool.
Where at the push of a button, after, I want to say it was over 5 years of being in hiding, they were able to slowly destroy, we're talking tens of millions of dollars worth of equipment at once.
Research, yeah.
Yeah, without anyone ever knowing that the software was inside their hardware. Malfunctioning parts that had explosives or small faults in them. So this very long chain of everything that could possibly be done to delay a project has been done. And if this wasn't done, and this is just on the side of them developing it themselves, 10 years ago, the Iranians would have had a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, and this is only the covert sides of, countering the nuclear bomb. I mean, on the official side, you had the JCPOA for the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action.
Good for you.
You like me to remember it?
Very well.
I know my Iranian stuff.
Guys, before you go on, you need to tell our viewers to subscribe us. That's super important.
You can tell them. What do you want?
Are there people who haven't subscribed yet?
60% did.
That's terrible. Impossible.
60%, Mati, it's not good.
Watch us on Smart
Guys,
TVs.
listen up. If you haven't subscribed yet, pause this video. It'll be here when you come back. Press the subscribe button, press the share button, press the like button, and if you're on YouTube, there's a little bell, and that bell makes sure you don't miss the next video. And now you can press play.
Definitely. That super helps us and helps you to know what's happening in Israel, in this region, so you can pray for the situation for real.
So you were talking about the JCPOA.
Yeah, JCPOA. Okay, that's an international agreement meant to slow down Iran's ability to reach a nuclear program, basically a nuclear bomb. That's the whole plan, and the goal is to allow international watchdog, basically international inspectors that come to Iran, go to their nuclear facility, and make sure that the Iranian nuclear program is peaceful and not designed for weapons. So that's what they are supposed to be doing. And in return,
explain why the distinction matters, though.
Yeah.
So because there's this weird situation where countries have the pretense or create the pretense of this isn't a nuclear. This isn't for a nuclear bomb.
So electricity.
We'd love to have nuclear power.
Exactly.
And of course, for the Iranians to say that's a bit absurd, since they're a very oil and gas-rich country.
Yeah.
They have no problem generating cheap electricity, but still
they don't have electricity in the country. Let's talk about that. Yeah.
We have a part to play in that. Israel, every once in a while, allegedly sabotages their electricity grid.
They have a few hours a day,
and sends amusing messages to people that blame the government for stealing the money.
Yeah,
anyway.
okay. So these watchdogs are sent by the International Atomic Agency to go to Iran, and then they are monitoring, and that's also a good name, IAEA,
Yeah.
International Atomic
Something agency.
Agency, something, yeah. Anyway, so they go to Iran, and then they monitor these facilities that indeed they are for peaceful nuclear programs and not
Yes.
weapons. Okay, that's what's supposed to be. And in return for abiding,
But it's not just supposed to be. Iran did comply with this program for the most part.
for the most part, apart from a few facilities that the watchdog agents were not allowed to enter.
Yeah.
And that raises the questions, why do you have nuclear facilities that we cannot monitor?
Well, we all know.
What are you doing there? Yeah, and that's where this whole JCPOA, the nuclear agreement, kind of collapsed because there wasn't complete transparency and no cooperation with the IAEA. What?
Let's play devil's advocate here for a second. It would be fair to say that for a good few years, the Iranians almost completely complied with the requests of the international community.
Why?
They dramatically slowed down their nuclear development. They didn't enrich uranium as far as all the observers could find, with no exception at that point. And they did it because the financial ramifications of not complying, the sanctions that later were imposed on Iran, were incredibly, incredibly heavy.
Yeah, because of the JCPOA, they received financial, not aid, but also like business cooperation, companies.
The sanctions were removed.
Yes,
and
so it means a lot of money to the Iranian people.
That's
the incentive.
But it was their money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just, it's also business. Let's say, what was it? I think it was Peugeot opened a factory of cars in Iran and stuff like that. So it's like international companies could make deals with the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yeah. So again, to be fair with the Iranians in this situation, for quite a few years they did comply, to our knowledge, at least on the big picture.
On the papers.
No, at least when it comes to the big picture, they did allow observers, they allowed supervisors to come in to inspect their facilities. They did slow down the enrichment of uranium. They did a lot of things that the international community requested, and they did it because of the financial gain of not having the sanctions imposed on them. Then two things happened. One, the U.S. unilaterally pulled out of the JCPOA.
When Trump was president for the first election.
1.0.
Yeah.
So the U.S. pulled out, and then the Iranians essentially said, and it's sort of hard to peg the reason for this. It might have been, it might have been unrelated to this, and they would have done it the same, or was maybe the trigger. And they said, well, what are we supposed to do? You've pulled out of this. You've reimposed sanctions on us.
Okay, so we must increase uranium capacity.
Why would we stop? So they went back to enriching uranium, pushing towards nuclear level or nuclear grade uranium enrichment. And at the same time, what happened to them was a new set of sanctions was imposed on them, led by the U.S.
Yeah.
And those sanctions, just to give people an idea, these similar things happened to the Russians. Think about this on a personal level. Let's say, Yair, you and I want to trade, and we're both private individuals. And I say, well, my sanctions on you, you're not going to be allowed to buy from this grocery store, and you're not going to be allowed to sell your services to anyone else in this country, and we're going to kick you out of the banking system. So you can't, if you want to transfer money, you're out of the SWIFT system.
Yeah. So
you can't move money internationally. Now you're carrying cash. Think about this. You're carrying hard cash or bartering goods to trade money with other countries. That is very, very rough for a country. Not only that, let's say you have a savings...
Very old school.
Yeah, you have a savings account in Switzerland, or you have a savings account in the US.
Frozen.
It's frozen.
You can't touch it.
And it's all your lifetime savings. Now it's frozen, you have no access to it. Not only that, your best friend Moshe, he has a savings account too in the US.
A personal one.
A personal one.
We're
taking his money too until the sanctions are removed from your country.
So he implies pressure internally against Iran to comply.
This was done to Iran on a national scale. The same was done to the Russians. And for them to now make money, again, they're a country that's rich in natural resources, specifically oil and natural gas. For them to now make money, they're having to sell at a discount to people who are willing to go against international sanctions.
Yeah.
So who are those people? The Chinese, the Indians perhaps, the Russians. There's only a few countries that are willing to
endanger the relationship with the United States,
US,
basically.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I had a brain freeze for a second. But there's not that many countries that do that. And then other countries that are willing to do it, they do it at this very roundabout way through third-party countries or companies and stuff like that. So it comes at a premium to the Iranians.
Because they need to pay on the way.
Yeah, so they've hurt. They've hurt really bad because of the sanctions on this. And now they're at the point which brings us to the beginning of 2025, where this is one of the last big things that they have. They've lost a lot of their proxies. The Houthis, I think, are going to be eliminated sometime soon. I don't think they're going to last as a...
You think that, okay, so you think now Trump is going to, begin implementing the maximum pressure campaign 2.0, meaning like more sanctions against Iran and maybe more covert operations.
We have a couple...
announced that he's going to bring hell on Hamas.
Yeah, I almost have a sense. I almost have a sense that there might be a U.S. coalition operation before Trump actually goes into office.
Really?
Yeah.
But with the Biden administration?
Yes, it is in the Biden administration's best interest to do something big before they leave office, and they might just slowly, let's call it, dial up the military campaign in that part of the Red Sea to allow a little more of a response. And the U.S. has already been heavy-handed with the Houthis.
Last night there were already U.S. attacks on Yemen.
There have been U.S. attacks on Yemen since the beginning of the war.
Also British attacks.
It was a massive attack.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And guys, the sponsor for today's show is Vinya. Vinya is basically a science that takes everything that's good in the grapes of Israel, puts them in a little pill, and then gives you increased blood flow and energy throughout your day. I mean, Mati and I, both of us, have been using it.
We're not peddling something that we don't stand behind. I've been taking Vinya every day for a long time, including today.
Including today?
Including today.
I need to ask him for a refill,
Yeah. And the stuff works. The science behind it is solid. And especially if you're getting slightly older, slightly slower, this thing is amazing for blood flow. It's amazing for energy. It is natural. It is scientifically proven to do a lot of good for your body. You have to be careful, I know, about what you say on air about this kind of things. And not only that, our viewers get a discounted price if they go directly through our link. And the link is www.vinyatbnisrael.com. Okay, so by purchasing through this link, you help us, you help the podcast, you help us create more content from Israel. And then we have a specific number. It's a toll-free number for anyone calling from North America. And the number is 800-638-1944. Again, toll-free, 800-638-1944, and say Mati sent you.
Definitely.
And again, when we've talked about this in the past, the Houthis in Yemen, as proxies of the Iranians, one, the Iranian control is very loose over the Houthis in general. Two, the Houthis have a much bigger problem where they're not just the enemy of Israel, they're the enemy of global trade.
Yeah.
And we all know that...
They're the pirates, the pirates of our day.
Exactly. And you know this historically, when someone endangers, let's call it NASDAQ, and think about it.
The world unites against them.
The world has absolutely no second thoughts about bombing them back to the, bombing them back
to the Stone Age.
To the Stone Age.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's exactly what's going to happen. And it has been happening with the Houthis. The level of bombing missions that have taken place in Yemen throughout this almost 15-month war at this point, the level of those campaigns has been far greater than anything else in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. So then the Iranians are left with this big question, the bomb. And one or two things have to happen. They or make a push, and it's going to be publicly known.
Yeah.
We're going for it this year. We're going for it and try to stop us.
You want to stop us?
Come and get us.
Come.
Yeah. Or they're saying, come make some big deal with us where it's this, let's call it multinational, multi-front, peace/pact/Abraham Accords /something agreement where Trump comes in with like a whole convoy of bulldozers and it all happens almost overnight.
Yeah.
They really don't have many other options aside from that.
On the side of Israel, it's looked like we made it clear that we can in any time attack in Iran any facility or whatever. We strip them down by defense. They don't have defense right now.
So they don't have the S-300 anti-aircraft defense systems or anti-rocket defense systems. And we've proven that we can strike their secret facilities in Iran. Okay, so maybe they'll be afraid to officially say that they are going for the bomb because that will open them up for attacks from Israel and especially together with the United States, now with Trump.
But we're going to know. And everyone knows that there are no in this level of operations when it's G to G warfare. This isn't,
What's
you know,
G2G?
government to government.
Ah, okay.
You know, we're not talking like some small terrorist group where they're hiding, you know, like a group of fighters in the jungle somewhere or in the desert somewhere. This is on a government scale operations. You see the trucks, you see the hangars, you see the convoys, you see the money movement. Governments know when these things happen, they know in real time. And when the Iranians make a move, and they have the ability to make
My hair is like jumping all over the place, apparently,
about
so I'm
it.
trying to...
At least you have hair. Rich man's troubles. Anyway.
Is it better? Yeah. Good? I think it's good.
No, you still have a... You have a... There we go.
Thanks, Mati.
Much better. Thank you. Come and comb his hair. I left my comb at home. I didn't bring it today.
Good? Is it good? Is it good?
Yeah.
See, all the bald people are giving me, you know, points on my hair. This is the situation here in the studio.
Anyway, so let's say they make this decision to make a push, and
Yeah. Keep.
it looks fine. Amshich.
It's like the best hair that I ever had.
I'll introduce you to my hairdresser.
Okay, so what is Israel going to do about it?
So they want to make a push. Israel isn't going to do nothing about it.
Nothing, you think?
Yeah, because let's
Against Iran?
Wait, let's be honest here. Israel alone cannot stop the Iranian nuclear program. Okay,
Of course not.
Let's be very, no, of course to you. Let's be very, very honest here.
Well, we can bomb. We stopped the Iraqi nuclear program alone.
Listen, the Iranians are no fools. They've learned the lessons of countless other dictatorial regimes before them who've lost their nuclear programs in the hands of Israel or others. They've learned the lesson. And
So what, they dig deeper?
they diversify.
Looks like the only lesson that all the terrorists learned is to dig tunnels deeper,
Underground.
bigger and wider.
Yeah,
That's what everybody is doing these days.
And diversify.
Yeah.
So it's instead of having the Iraqis had one plant, the Osirak reactor. It was in construction. It was visible to satellite imaging.
Yeah.
It was visible to bombing missions, and it didn't have air defense systems in place. Let's remember that. The Israeli Air Force struck just before they went online because they were still in construction. They didn't expect us to get it.
Yeah, that's actually not so wise. I would have started with the air defenses and then the nuclear facilities. If you make a plan on construction.
Whose side are you on here? Yeah, who are you giving advice?
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, you don't need the air defenses. Wait with until afterwards.
Yeah, the last thing to do is to put the air defenses.
But let's play this war game. In past adversaries of Israel, think about the Iraqis. This is the end of the 90s. What was it, 89, the strike on the facility? One, we did a couple things that were a huge surprise. We used new fighter jets at the maximum range of the fighter jets at the time.
Yeah, the maximum oil capability of the fighters, right?
Yeah. It was, I mean,
like no time to make a U-turn and do another turn.
They had literally minutes to spare on that bombing mission. They had no time. Wow. So it was at the max range of the fighter jets. The Iraqis didn't imagine we had the capability of even reaching those targets. That's one.
You talked with one of the...
We interviewed. You can find this on our YouTube channel. Relik Shafir.
Oh, Relik Magnus.
No, Relik
Shafir, yeah.
Relik Shafir.
Amazing. He sat down and tell us the whole...
Yeah, we sat down with Relik Shafir, who was one of the pilots.
Pilots of this raid. Yeah,
Actually, it's interesting. During the war, I met another one of the pilots. He came to speak to us in one of the...
Really?
One of our company events. I forget the guy's name, but it was a very impressive story. Anyway, so the Iraqi bomb was, they had the one reactor. We knew about it. It was sold to them by the French. Previously, we had blown up a previous reactor that the French had while it was still on the ground in France. They, of course, denied that they ever thought to sell the Iraqis a nuclear reactor. Look at another version. Assad's regime in Syria, Israel, by chance, you remember this story, we by chance find out that they have a nuclear program. We stole a bunch of documents from one of their scientists who was in Europe.
We love to steal documents.
Yeah, we love stealing documents.
Don't forget Bibi with all the documents.
If there's ever a lesson I've learned is when you travel internationally and leave your briefcase in a hotel room, don't carry the plans for a nuclear program in it.
For sure not.
or a computer that has like all your country's secrets on it, and then leave it in your room. Anyway, so we did that a couple times. Think about the Syrians. They had one facility. It was unprotected. We were able to bomb it. Wait, it gets worse. Think about you have Gaddafi. Gaddafi has a nuclear plan in Libya. He makes the huge mistake of trusting the West when the West says to him, if you give up your nuclear program, we'll be nice.
We'll protect you.
We'll play nice. They do the exact opposite of that. Gaddafi gives up his nuclear program, and everyone is like, you know what, guys? No, they wait a couple of years to be polite about it. Yeah. But the first opportunity they have, they're like, oh, look, he's showing a sign of weakness. Boom. He doesn't have a nuclear program. Forget boom. Here, it's training time, training session for all the air forces and the special forces of the Europeans and the coalition forces
to come and bomb.
To come and bomb Libya. And they do that. They topple his very long-standing regime. And every dictator around the world looks at that. They open their little book and they write on the bottom of their lesson list of like things learned from the fall of other dictators. Never, ever, ever
trust the West.
Give up your nuclear program when the West tells you to do that.
That's why Assad got so close to Iran in the end.
Yeah.
Russia.
But listen, what we see that Iran is doing now is basically, making stronger coalitions with other nations, not with the West, with the East, with China, with Russia, with the proxies that we see like Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other players in this region, in order to prepare for the day that the sanctions will be even stronger. Maybe they're ready for the sanctions to come now with the new Trump administration.
They're not alone in that. Russia
is also under sanctions.
It just came out that China paying to the Houthis with technological stuff, parts of drones and stuff like that, to move their ships.
Yeah.
And
they're back to that's what happens when you're kicked out of the SWIFT system.
Yeah.
You're back to bartering. You have to give equipment and goods in return for services.
You have to trade
you have to
fish for wood.
Trade in pre-currency standards. So the Iranians do have allies, and the allyship is interesting in itself. But there's another element here to think about is they've tried repeatedly to buy a nuclear program. They've really, really, really tried. And the world has done a really good job of preventing that from happening. And think about it this way. Russia is strapped for cash. Always has been, always will be with the policy that they're carrying out.
Sold to one weapon.
We don't know that they haven't tried. They've tried to sell. No, the Russians are smart. They use proxies the same way the Iranians do. Who has a nuclear program that was created by the Russians? The North Koreans. North Koreans. Where did North Korea get there? What did they come up with a nuclear program on their own? Absolutely not. They bought the bits and pieces from different countries, allegedly probably from the Russians and the Chinese possibly. Who knows exactly where they got all the pieces. And the North Koreans, who, let's be honest here, they don't work on their own. They work with other countries. The North Koreans tried to sell the Iranians a nuclear program. It didn't work out. And didn't work out means probably
somebody sabotaged along the way.
Yeah, or someone got a very clear SMS or message, or in their case maybe a beeper message, since
we were highly invested in beepers.
Yeah, since North Korea is not really advanced when it comes to technology, they got some very, very clear messages warning them not to hand over the goods, and they didn't. So just to show you that the world is aware of the fact that this could happen, and they've worked very, very hard and probably very aggressively to prevent that from taking place. So all that brings us to today. We're at the beginning of 2025. The Iranians don't have a bomb. And I want to talk about the timeline for a second.
But they're really close, okay? All the estimates and all the reports that we see in the news is that a bomb is days ahead, weeks ahead.
It's not true.
Also, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, on his last UN speeches before this current war, he was like, this is the bomb, this is the fuse. Iran is so close to reaching a nuclear bomb. And that was years ago.
Yeah.
So where are they standing today?
But I think there are a couple fallacies that have to do with the Iranian bomb. People misunderstand the process in this, and I want to break it down for a second. Yes, they're what we call a nuclear threshold entity. And what that means is they have the ability, the means, the technology, the resources, the know-how to break from where they are today and push towards the bomb. But what that means is there are a couple go, no-go points in this process. And there are three main ones. The first one is nuclear-grade enriched uranium. And you can either buy that or enrich it yourself. And the Iranians are enriching it themselves. They have uranium ore, and they're enriching it to weapons grade, and they use the word, we've heard this if you've been following the news in the last decade, centrifuges to do that.
Yeah.
And essentially, you're going through a process where you're raising the level of reactiveness in the material. You're enriching the material to a point where it can go into the chain reaction needed for a bomb and not for generating electricity.
Yes.
That's one. The second part of that is the actual warhead technology.
A missile that needs to basically deliver.
Not yet. This is the phase. This is the part that goes on the top of the missile.
Yeah.
So like Russia have this warfare that bombs 7 times and you have 7 small warfare inside.
No, but so let's. What is this thing here that says?
Don't press. You want to press it? Don't press.
Don't press the nuclear bomb.
No, it's only one time. You want to do it?
Let's do it.
Okay, that's it.
No, I'm actually worried of a.
Let's do it. Hey!
I think it was supposed to go bigger. What does it say?
Boom. Just boom.
Allahu Akbar? Anyway, so let's say this is the bomb, since we have this sample over here.
It goes again.
Yeah, so you put the enriched, maybe next time. We never ending surprises here. So let's say this is the bomb. There's a core of enriched uranium, and around it is an explosive charge. It's a shaped charge, and there's a very precise methodology for how that process starts, where it doesn't just go boom, but it actually starts a chain reaction that is far greater than the weight, the size, the volume of any conventional type of explosives. Yeah. And that itself is a science to its own of how you do it accurately, and then how do you take it from something that's the size of this room into something that's the size that can fit on the top of a missile.
Definitely.
So that in itself is a technology that takes time to dial in. They don't have.
The important part is to make it pointy.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. So and then
pointy, no boom boom.
Okay, and then and then the next stage is to create a rocket, a ballistic rocket that is capable of carrying that payload and reaching Israel, the United States, Europe, places that they want to attack.
There's another option, because you don't have to have an ICBM.
You can have an aircraft that is carrying the payload and then dropping it.
But Iran doesn't have those.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets important.
But Iran has they have good rockets.
They have ICBMs.
We've seen the rockets coming here.
I would use the word good. I'd give them a 6 out of 10 grade.
They reached Israel.
They reach Israel, but they have a dud rate of approximately 30%. A lot of their rockets explode within Iran on the way to Israel.
But these are the rockets that they fired at us. Maybe they're keeping the good ones for the nuclear bomb.
We've seen the same. Let me say this differently. With very few exceptions in recent decades, dictatorships aren't really good at creating precise things. And think about it this way.
Well, it's not their goal.
No, it's
their
not.
Their goal is to terrorize, to sow fear. You don't need precise for that.
I'll say this
differently. The opposite.
If you're a culture that instills fear in the hearts of everyone that's under the government, and saying no is not an option, and saying not yet is not an option, and you fear execution, and you fear imprisonment, and you fear of ever stepping out against your boss or the government or the party line, that's not exactly the kind of culture that's conducive to creating fine technology. And you look at, so what happens is, they do have very smart people. I don't want to be disrespectful, the Iranian or the Russian people, for instance. But at the same time, their government pushes to many kind of things. And think about the worst kind of leader or CEO that you can imagine. Why? Because I said so, do it now. So
Mati Shoshani.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding. I found you this article. They saying that this is going to be the year of the new nuclear.
Look, these are the kind of headlines that don't really, they say everything, they say nothing at the same time.
Yeah.
So, because no one knows. All we know is, and everyone's sort of they're trying to play their cards. Tomo was showing us a headline in an Israeli newspaper that says that Iran is recalculating their plans.
Their plans for 2025 because of the Trump maximum pressure campaign 2.0.
Yeah, because a 40-pound sledgehammer has been dropped on their head repeatedly.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. Everybody's recalibrating now.
Of course they're recalculating.
Yeah. For sure. They lost Hezbollah, they lost Syria, and all they have is the Houthis.
Yeah.
And they have severe economic pressure from within, which is, I think, the goal, is to get the Iranian people to rise up against the Iranian regime.
Yeah, but
I think that's the key element in 2025.
Here's where it gets tricky. The Iranians don't actually have to have a functioning bomb for them to become a nuclear country.
They need us to think that they have.
They need to show. They need more than that. The technology is there to know whether you have the ability to blow a nuclear payload. And what most countries do nowadays, where dictatorships that are trying to get a bomb at this point, what they do is they have a nuclear test that's done underground to prevent the nuclear radioactive, let's call it dust and stones.
Or in an island somewhere,
Yeah.
if you have like an
Islands
island.
was more in previous dates, but you think about the North Koreans, think about the Pakistanis, think about other countries. What they do is they do underground experiments. And by the way, like 6 months ago, there were rumors that the Iranians had done that. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there was some seismic activity going on next to the Natanz nuclear facilities in Iran and stuff like that.
And it was said later on that it wasn't nuclear related, but you do have the ability, by the way, with both satellite and seismic sensors, to know if a nuclear bomb was detonated in a place. You can't pinpoint to the meter where it happened, but it's accurate enough to know that it did happen.
Yeah.
So if the Iranians make that kind of break, and even if they don't have the ability to load it on a rocket and bring it to Israel, we will know that it happened, and that changes the game completely.
Yeah.
Completely changes the game for everyone. So they don't really have to finish the process, because the process is redundancies. Make the bomb, put it, in a warhead, put it on a missile, prove that your missiles actually make it to their target with a nuclear warhead.
But they do that. They do missile testings all the time.
Yeah, they do.
So that part they are doing, but the
almost
nuclear
there,
part they're not doing.
Exactly.
Plus, there's another element. I mean, you need to have more than one bomb in order to become a nuclear state.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to have the ability for a secondary strike or a third strike. You need, like Israel, allegedly, according to foreign reports, has the submarines.
Yeah.
So, and the United States, they have bases that have the ability to launch nuclear weapons. Also, if the entire United States of America is destroyed with nuclear attacks, they can still launch bombs against Russia.
Yeah. Wait. Aaron Hecht, one of our talented writers, he wrote me because I keep getting the term wrong.
What's the term?
The term is mutually assured destruction. I missaid it last time. I don't remember what I said, but I couldn't remember the exact term. The term the acronym is MAD. Mutually assured destruction when it comes to nuclear capabilities, which is if you have one and I have one, we can never use them because it doesn't matter what we do.
We destroy each other.
We destroy each other and we're all dead.
Mutually assured destruction.
I'll try to remember that.
Very positive.
MAD, it's an easy acronym. Anyway, so we're at a place right now where the Iranians have the ability to break towards military level or grade enriched uranium, where they would be able in a matter of months possibly to push towards an initial warhead. But this timeline that people are throwing around of like we're weeks away from a bomb or months away from a bomb, it's not true. It's not true in the sense that when you really want to like test these kind of things to a military level, they're 12 to 24 months away. And that's not much time, but it's not weeks.
Yeah, but listen, okay, so all the money of the JCPOA, or a lot of the Iranian money, was spent on Hezbollah, on the Houthis, on Iranian militias, on Hamas, on Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So now that all of that collapsed, not sure that Iran will want or have the money to invest in it again. So in the term of the Iranian people, the government, they still have the same amount of money, but they just can invest it in the nuclear bomb now.
I don't know.
So you see what I mean?
like
because, okay, so the JCPOA was an incentive to try a new strategy to destabilize the region and to spread the Iranian ideology through proxies. So, okay, so that failed. So now they might regroup and think together, okay, this thing failed, let's try a new route, the nuclear bomb. So that's a reason that maybe this year will be a significant push in that direction.
Spent money on that. I don't know. I'll say this differently. In a nuclear program, I don't know that having a lot of money is enough to get to. Well, I know that it isn't.
Well, you need to control the country. You need
you need a
to
lot.
push off international pressure.
So for them, it's not like they can just push the button and say, well, let's spend that amount of money and now we'll have a bomb.
It's hide the scientists, protect the key assets, dig the facilities.
Exactly.
A lot.
So,
which also, they did many of these stuff.
Let's dive into the money a bit, and we've done some much longer form content about what's going on the ground within Iran. When you focus in on what Iran's able to do, they're already spending over $20 billion a year on the IRGC. About half of the money they make from oil a year goes to the IRGC and the IRGC projects. Only $1 billion or so of that was going to Hezbollah. Only hundreds of millions are going to the Houthis.
Yeah.
Much of their money goes into enforcing their government and enforcing the external power of the IRGC. So that could happen. I think I want to do something that we never do, which is make some predictions about what's going to happen.
Why, in 2025? Yeah, let's do it.
And I was thinking about this morning, reading through our scripts and thinking about this. I think we're gonna have some unexpected events take place. We talked about this, what was it, in the last podcast of what could happen in 2025?
Yeah. Yeah, and what, Iran came first or second, depending on what do you calculate the rising anti-Semitism in the world?
Since last week, until the moment people watch this content that we're going live with right now, in that 1 week between one podcast to the other, the Turks went from like a 2 to a 10 on the insanity charts, right? Like if you think about it, they went from like, we're like...
we're only on the borders against the Kurds, defending our people, to Syria is ours.
They went literally from aggressive foreign policy to righteous religious war within 1 week.
Back to the Ottoman Empire.
Within a week. Within a week, they went from declaring, we're considering to this, we're conquering Syria, we're taking over land, we're going to start a Kurdish autonomy. They went like ballistic, no pun intended, when it comes to this.
No, it's crazy that everything here in the Middle East is changing so fast. So it's very hard to make predictions. You know, also the leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is what, 80 something, and he's like, he doesn't look healthy at all, but he's still there. Who's going to replace him? I mean, they're grooming somebody to replace him, but is he going to be able to control all the population and all the proxies with the same?
And the more important question is, how long will it take us to learn their names?
Yeah, exactly. You know,
it took us
years to get this guy's name.
We're still struggling with their current president, Masoud Pezeshkian.
I think he's the But the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, at least he's staying, so we can remember his name for a long time. But everything can change.
To a point.
Okay, you start.
So I think one of two things can happen. It's going to be or really, really good, really fast, or really, really bad, really fast. And I'll break that down. The really good part could be that Iran has done their homework, and they realize that Trump coming into office, and I think we're going to see his administration. We've seen the steps they've taken in advance, the people they put in those positions. They might move at warp speed towards a regional agreement, at a speed that we've never seen before in this region.
Agreement with who?
Everyone.
With the Saudis?
With everyone. He's already made public threats. Trump going in, he's the oncoming U.S. president. He's already made a very long list of public threats of like, if you don't get your stuff together.
I am starting to clean up the red button. Yeah. I am starting to clean it up a little bit. Watch out, Iran.
They brought the little brush in. They're dusting off all the red buttons.
Give me the codes. I want to see if I remember them by heart. You know.
What?
It's after the U.S. will take Canada and Greenland, they will take care of Iran?
Well, those are things are half jokes.
I'm not sure it's half jokes.
Look, Canada. Well, this is a different.
It's a different topic.
Canada. Look, the U.S. It's interesting. Trump's administration and the upcoming administration, they say things that when you look at them at face value, they seem crazy, and then when you dive deeper, you understand they've actually thought about the methodology of the whole thing, and they've identified correctly most of the time. They've identified correctly who the true threats to American hegemony in their neighborhood and in the extended global neighborhood, who their true enemies are. They looked at Canada under Justin Trudeau, who just resigned from his role, and they said, this person and this government's doctrine goes against the American agenda under the upcoming Trump administration. Let's oppose it. And they were correct in doing that, because it did. And again, we have Canadian friends. The Canadian friends would agree with a lot of the American government statements. You'll hear some very strong statements from them. But let's go back to
Iran. Okay, what's going to happen? So first week when Trump is president.
First week when Trump is president, he's first of all he's in the U.S. But then let's call it month number 2.
Okay,
he's in the Middle East, and let's think about the players. You have and we'll start in our neighborhood, Israel and Hamas. We have to have an agreement. That's already, we're pushing harder than we have in a year for this. You had Dedi Barnea, he spends, I think, more time in airplanes going back and forth to the UAE and to Qatar, and he's constantly flying back and forth. The press releases that have been coming out of Israeli intelligence.
Dedi Barnea is the head of the Mossad. Yeah. So he's going and leading the negotiations between Israel and the Hamas representatives.
Exactly, and the negotiations, the level of leaks that have happened in the last week, we haven't seen in 11 months.
Yeah.
Since month number 2 of the war, We haven't had that level of leaks on the names of hostages that could be released, the terms of an agreement, Hamas concessions to different
Hamas officials, saying different things to different outlets. So there is something going up.
It's heating up. Like the speed and the intensity of the negotiations is much higher.
So deal with Hamas to release the hostages.
Yeah. We already have a partly American brokered agreement with Hezbollah. That's about to expire. That expires as Trump comes into office again.
Yeah.
So you have Hezbollah. You have the Syrians who are, so you have Julani, and he's in this weird position.
No, Saha, Mohammed Saha. He changes his name.
How about we just wait for him to settle on? He keeps rebranding every other week.
Definitely. Rebranding and changing his wardrobe.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, so we have them, and then think about the other parties that are really waiting for something to change. The Egyptians are a failed economy. Think about this, a country of almost 100 million people. They need stability in this region.
They need the Suez Canal.
Exactly.
They need the ships and the maritime routes to resume.
The biggest army in Africa right now.
Yeah.
They have the biggest
and the biggest navy in the Middle East. So Iran is at this point where the whole region is sort of up for a change. And
it's changing.
Yeah, it's not just them. And the Americans are going to come in with their bombers and and Trump's, as we say in Israel, Trump's D9s, the bulldozers.
Yeah.
And they're pushing for an agreement. We were talking about the Egyptians. The Egyptians, we're all talking about Israel as Israelis. They're building the navy. Oy vavoy, oy vavoy. Let's not forget.
Oy vey.
Yeah. Who's the Egyptians' biggest enemy right now? The Houthis. Mm-hmm. The Houthis are destroying the Egyptian economy.
Yeah.
Destroying the Egyptian economy. The Egyptians make, and people don't understand this, they make tens of billions of dollars from two things. One, trade going through the Suez Canal, and two, people perceiving Egypt to be a safe place and coming to visit it as tourists.
Yeah.
And the Houthis and the regional war have destroyed both of those things for them.
Yeah.
So they're whatever you're going to offer to them is like, let's do something that can position you better in this region. They're doing it. Then it moves on. What about the Houthis?
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen to them?
I think the Houthis are going to get attacked immediately with a huge coalition strike by Israel, the U.S., the Brits, and other Western powers, because this cannot go on. And I think that the first thing that Trump will do is make a statement. I'm not messing around. I'm going to blow these Houthis out of the waters or out of the land or wherever.
In the early 2000s,
for sure,
the U.S. had something that was called the Global War on Terrorism. And it wasn't the U.S. alone. It was a bunch of coalition armies. The U.K. was part of it. Many other countries, by the way. I think you'd have to Google this or Wikipedia it because there's a huge, or whatever service you use. We're not advertising any of them, but
ChatGPT.
Use ChatGPT version 4. Anyway, many countries were fighting against terrorism, and a lot of it had to do with disruptions of global trade and global stability. And the Houthis, they're sitting at this point, both geopolitically and also financially, where no one in the world has any reason to hesitate to bombing them back to the Stone Age, as you said previously.
Yeah,
no one in the world, they have no political power. They don't sit in any council.
They don't have any allies, apart from the Iranians, basically, that just use them.
Exactly. And they're a country that's been taken over by a terrorist organization.
The weakest country in the Middle East.
So, and every time they disrupt global trade, it costs trillions.
To everybody.
Everyone.
To everybody. Not just to Israel.
People, what was it, in November and December of 2023, when the Houthis were firing rockets and boarding ships that were traveling through Bab el-Mandab, the straits that sort of they sit on.
Next to the Red Sea, basically where all the water next to Yemen.
Yeah, entering into the Red Sea. When they were disrupting that trade, it cost, I don't remember what the number was. Oh, I sent you what was the guy talking about? It was a 250-something% rise in the cost of global shipping overnight, right?
Yeah.
I sent you that link earlier this week, Toma, where I sent it to one of my brother-in-laws was quoted in the article in it. Yeah. Anyway, so it disrupts. Think about this. Every time you buy a pair of sneakers now,
you need to pay 250% on the shipping more than that.
Yeah, it more than doubles the cost of shipping almost overnight when they do those kind of things. And you have ships that were planning to go through the Suez Canal. They're now traveling around
around Africa.
Like 5 days ago, Egypt said that they going for attacking the Houthis.
Egypt. That's good. That's good for us. But Mati, so I think what will happen is that there will be a resumption of severe economic pressure by the United States and the West against the Islamic Republic of Iran, starting from a few weeks from now when Trump assumes office.
Okay.
Together with massive threats against the Iranians.
Yes, my brain has been gone.
You got back? You got back?
No, gone on a side note.
35% inflation by sea.
How much?
35.
Since the war started.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Think about this. Everything that you buy in your supermarket almost comes through that route. Everything you buy in a clothing store, in an appliance shop, in a hardware shop, they're all traveling by sea. So I was trying in my head to remember if it was Cape Horn or the Cape of Good Hope. The Cape of Good Hope is the cape at the southernmost point of Africa. You have ships now. This is a trade route that ships used to want to avoid because of how long and how treacherous the route is. Think about this. Instead of traveling from Asia through the Mediterranean to European ports, now they're going the long route around Africa, then through Gibraltar to get into the Mediterranean. It's thousands and thousands of miles of travel.
Even more than that, 3 times more the route.
Been built?
In the early 20th century.
So before that, you needed to go around all these places.
No, and think many ships never made the route. And think about this. Even historically, there was a land route that did what the Suez Canal does. The Spice Road, the King's Road. There's a bunch of roads in Israel that were people that would come to the Gulf of Aqaba or the Gulf of Eilat, depending on how you want to call it, and they would travel in that route.
Gulf of Eilat is better. I prefer.
Same. Anyway, through that part, the northern part of the Red Sea, and they travel by land to get into the Mediterranean. So people would do that in the past. They would now try to do it again. It didn't really work. Anyway,
well, okay. So what? Before we conclude today's report,
so we're saying,
Alon, come say hi 1 second, guys. Remember Alon? We told you the stories he wrote from the Gaza Strip.
He's back.
He's back. He's back with us.
Anyway.
So good to see you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts from Gaza.
And I want to say this, guys. If you ask yourselves, we've talked about this many times. The Israeli soldiers that are protecting our country in Gaza, they're not these nameless, faceless people. They're Alon, a father to some very sweet and very active boys, a husband to a lovely wife, and he's now back with us. Everyone who's prayed for Alon back at home, keep doing this. Pray for the soldiers of Israel. Alon can't talk about everything he experienced on camera, but God was there protecting him and his comrades as he was fighting in Gaza. Welcome back, Alon.
And I don't think he wants to keep fighting in Gaza. He wants to be with his family, wants to be here with us and help us make more updates from Israel. So please unite in prayer that this war will end and that God will reign. And we believe it will happen. Talking about all these bad stuff and projections for 2025, you can stay here or you can go, whatever you want. We've been talking a lot of projections about more clashes, more war, and nuclear attacks and stuff like that in 2025. But on a positive note, with all this uncertainty, we can only rely on God, that He's the only constant that I can say, I have for 2025. All the other projections are kind of like, gambling. It can go this way, can be the other way. Hezbollah can regroup and become a huge terrorist organization with another name or something else.
Because I think it goes one of two ways.
Yeah.
It's very, very good very fast, or very, very bad very fast. And so we were on the good side. Is if the U.S. comes in and Iran realizes, we we talked about these other countries. Saudi's been sitting and waiting for 2 years now to become part of some kind of global or regional trade agreement or accords or something like that. Just a month before the war broke out in September of 2023, there was news of some kind of interim agreement with the Saudis.
Well, like Abraham Accords.
They didn't want to officially be part of the Abraham Accords, but some kind of accords where they form a global coalition against the Iranians. That's still on the table. That's not going away. So you have all these countries that are waiting.
Just waiting to do some good together.
And then you have the Iranians. And then the question is, do the Iranians calculate their risk and say, okay, we're not abandoning our army and our IRGC. We still want to maintain power and deterrence. But for the time being, it seems like the wise thing to do is rejoin into some kind of agreement, have them release some of our assets, give us our cash back, allow us back into the banking system, give us incentives and yada yada, be on Trump's good side. Or they say, no, we're going to play hardball. And if they play hardball, I believe they might have the worst surprise of the century. I think Israel is at the point now, this is I think when it goes negative and sideways, Israel is at the point where we no longer think that we need to ask for permission to bomb other countries. And we've learned that when we lead, other countries follow when it comes to plain defense in this region.
Yeah.
The U.S., even under the Biden administration, has done more aggressively in this region than they've done in a very, very, very long time. Yeah. And then add to that, President Trump, who's not known for his finesse when it comes to global relationships, and he is a very staunch supporter of Israel. He's brought in cabinet members and an ambassador to Israel who are people that are more Zionist than you and I combined sometimes. You know, they love Israel, and they love Israel with a red button in one hand and a gun in the other hand. And if they come in and the Iranians are like, they start, I don't want to try to do an Iranian accent, they start saying, no, we're not scared of you, we'll show you. I think they're going to learn the hard way, that they're going to learn a very, very painful lesson.
For sure, it's going to be a very interesting year, you know. And we'll have a lot more podcasts to discuss the situation here.
I was imagining this, and it's like, where's it going to go? So far, there's been many, many of these moments where it's just like, it's this inching, like negotiation, inching.
No, I think it's going to be fast.
It's not going to be slow.
It's going to be fast.
Some of the resolutions we've seen in recent months in this region, the speed in which Hezbollah was toppled, the speed in which Assad regime was toppled, the speed in which people respond to the Houthis' threats again and again and again. These aren't things that have happened in the past in this region. Both Israel and the enemies of Israel, and also the allies of Israel, have moved much faster now than they have in the past. Yep. And the Iranians, it's also everything's on the table now. All the ifs. What if this? What if that?
Everything happened. Everything happened.
Hezbollah
attacked. Israel invaded.
Everything's known.
Syria collapsed. Exactly. Everything happened.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So everything's known. The last big piece is Iran going to play nice, or are they going to push for the bomb? And I believe, and I'm saying this because I would rarely make a prediction on these kind of things. I think if they push for a bomb, they're going to find out. They're going to find out what it really means to go against the U.S. led by a president who's not afraid to bomb another country, who's not afraid to stand up for what's right. He's going to learn what happens when you go against the people of Israel after 15 months of war.
Sure.
Well, we have no inhibitions now of like, well, there's no reason to play nice.
For sure.
And if that happens, if the Iranians say, look, we're pulling out of all the agreements, we're pushing for the bomb, we're going to continue bombing, we're going to continue sending missiles on American aircraft carriers in the Arabian Sea, which they've been doing. Yeah. If that continues, I think we're going to see military operation at a scope that has never been imagined by the Iranian government, never been imagined, I think, by Tom Clancy. Is Tom Clancy still alive? Anyway,
he's not a sponsor, Matti. You need to stop saying his name.
He's in my head. It's when you write a book where like people read it, it's like, wars never happen this way. Wars do happen this way now in the Middle East, and I think it could happen at a pace that is surprising to everyone. And you might find yourself 60 days from now at some kind of like peace, or 90 days from now, with the Iranian president and the Israeli delegates and the Saudis all sitting at a table or in separate rooms and signing agreements that say there'll be peace in our daytime that we've never seen before.
Possible,
or images of war where there's flames. I prefer the previous graphic that we had for this show, by the way.
With the flames?
Yeah, with the flames and the.
By the way, this is like I think it's the Natanz nuclear facility, and these are supposedly missiles. You see, very pointy, according to the movie The Dictator.
I have to say, our graphics team and our creative team have been getting so much better at the graphics. Yes. I love the graphics that we have on the screen. Yeah, Frank and others. Good for them. Anyway, we might see images, I think, that are going to blow our mind.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we're going to see that.
Yeah. Matti, I want to say before we wrap up, happy birthday to Yaakov. Today is his birthday. He's 37 years old. So Yaakov is one of our editors for this podcast.
Yeah. He's one of the many people that have to clean up the mess that Yair and I create in an edit room later on. But so now let's finish with a couple minutes on what's happening in our neighborhood.
Okay.
Because we talked about this. The sense was, and we sort of think we gave a false sense of stability in previous conversations about this topic. Everyone feels like everything's calming down. Look, the storm has passed, and this war is wrapping up. The Hamas.
Who's feeling?
I felt.
You
this
feel like it's coming down?
No, yeah, it's been the headlines.
Leave us for a month next month to go for 60 days reserve duty.
And anyway, but relatively speaking.
Okay.
Relatively speaking.
We had three Israeli killed. I don't know why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
3 Israelis were murdered because of Hamas terrorists just now.
Yeah.
It's not coming down.
But in the grand scope of things, like it seemed like the big picture of Hezbollah less of an issue, Syria less of an issue, Iran, Houthis, everything's like at a slower level. The dust,
But it's like, we find RPGs like half an hour away from here,
this
like by Palestinian terrorists.
supplied by Iran.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's not.
And that's the point that we need to end with, which is that if you think the dust has, not you, Yair, if viewers think that the dust has settled over the conflict in this region, it's not done yet. And the surprises that we might see in the near future are bigger than people can imagine. And you mentioned this, or you referenced this. Weaponry has been found in northern Samaria just this week that is what we call tie-breaking weaponry. Anti-tank missiles,
Yeah, RPG, heavy machine guns.
Yeah, exactly. Equipment supplied by Iran to Hamas within the boundaries of Israel.
Yeah.
It's within Judea and Samaria, things that have not been found before. You have other regional players that have been destabilized to a point that is unexpected. The dust has not yet settled, and the last word has not been said about what Iran is trying to do through proxies in this region. And it is not unimaginable for them to try something very daring, very dangerous through someone we didn't imagine in the past.
Yeah.
It's very possible.
Yeah,
and so, in other words, we're looking at this. I think it's going to move so much faster and so much different than what we're projecting and expecting that we're only going to be surprised. And my sense is it's all going to be very, very good, where it all of a sudden ends and the sun comes out of the clouds and everything seems peaceful for a while, or it's going to be an explosion of dimensions that we can't even imagine.
Yeah. Well,
that's my sense.
well, we'll see.
On that high note.
Thanks, Mati. So, guys, I really appreciate you staying with us. If you stayed until now, that means that you really want to know what's happening in Israel, and thank you for that. And if you're not a subscriber...
You owe us a projection.
What, of 2025?
Yeah, well, not Iran. What do you think is going to happen? Don't leave me hanging.
Okay. Listen, I think that Iran will not back down as long as Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader, is alive. He will just harden his stance. They're going to play hardball, and we're going to have more conflict until he's toppled. Him, personally.
Yes.
Hey, guys, if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe, share, like, and most importantly, pray for the situation, because we don't have any other solutions other than praying for the situation in this region. Remember, our good friend Eric Steckelbach keeps saying, whatever stays in the Middle East, whatever happens in the Middle East does not stay in the Middle East, and it's true, okay? So help us here before it gets to you in Europe, the United States, or anywhere else in the world.
Thank you, Yair. This has been a fun podcast.
Definitely.
Let's do this again.
Bye.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at TBN.